it is. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode of Maker That Money. We are live right here on the YouTube, same as always, 9 a.m. Pacific every Friday. With me today, I'm excited. We got a good episode. Of course, we got my sidekick here, Mr. Andrew Mayhall of 3D Gloop. Andrew, how you doing this morning? Good morning.
Doing great. Good morning
Awesome.
to you.
And we have a fantastic guest with us this morning, a little newcomer to the scene. This is Joni Peebles from Iacon3DLabs. Guys, now they're a new, I'm going to let her tell you guys who she is here in a second. But we are very, very delighted to have her, kind of a newcomer to the maker business scene. And Joni, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being on the podcast. Welcome. Why don't
No
you
problem.
introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, who Iacon3DLabs is, and what do you do?
Well, good morning. Thanks for the intro. I am one half of Iacon3DLabs. My husband and I are in business together, interestingly enough.
Wow.
Helpful that we're complete opposites. So I do the business side and he does the design side. And so about a year ago in COVID, we decided that we wanted to have something that we were a little bit more in control of and had something to fall back on besides our regular jobs.
Okay.
And so he is a designer. He's been a designer for his entire career of more like CAD, electrical design type things.
Okay.
Never did 3D modeling, but he wanted to pick it up. And I'm a CPA. So
that's a
you know,
pairing.
I was ready for the business side. And I mean, I'd be like, let's just start a business tomorrow. Let's go. Let's do it. So I work with small businesses all the time. I love it. But he was not so convinced. But we thought that we would give it a go to have something to go with. So he taught himself 3D modeling, and we decided that we'd get into 3D printing just as an interesting technology, and we thought it would fit what we wanted to do. We are children of the 80s, and so we design products for that generation of toy collectors. So our tagline is nostalgic displays for geek collectors, which basically is Transformers, Ninja Turtles, you know, some other small stuff in there that we're trying to get into. Those are our two main ones right now. He had a huge collection of Transformers, still does have a huge collection of Transformers. But there's different parts and pieces that he wanted to change on them to make them, you know, interesting, display differently, or, you know, accessorize and things like that. So we just started off with things that he wanted to see. You know, he would find a piece that he wanted, design it. And so we jumped in with both feet and bought a huge, we wanted to do large format stuff. So we bought a huge Pia Polyphenol Prime.
You started with
printer,
a big,
right out of the
big
gate.
resin machine.
Go
Right
big
out
or
of the
go
gate.
home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So we taught ourselves how to do the resin process. And so he does the designs. I help with some of the printing. And we dye our resin so that we can get color prints out. And he taught himself airbrushing to do some of the details on things. And I take care of kind of everything else, the business side of stuff, social aspects, finances,
Wow.
You know, all that stuff. So it's interesting. You know, we bounce ideas off of each other. I am kind of a perfectionist on some stuff. So I do the QC side of things, and, you know, he knows the fans. So, you know, it's an interesting dynamic that we work with.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So, guys, really quick, if you're listening back later, or if you're with us right now, I have a link to their website in the description. Now, I can't pull it up here visually with our current setup, but go to the Iacon3DLabs.com. You can get a sense of what Joni and her husband do, and it's really cool. It speaks to me because I'm of that time as well, and I had a large Transformer collection and stuff too. And I'm like, oh my, I had that one. I remember that, and the detail of this work is just fantastic. So it's really neat to see two individuals like yourself, one that kind of complement each other well. So that's a huge advantage, I would say, to start off and have, you know, big chunks of the business plan kind of handled in terms of like who's going to have which responsibilities and whatnot. But just to see people diving in and making a go of it, I think if there's a bright side to the COVID experience, I know that in talking to a lot of different people that I think it's really inspired people because we've been home a lot to give some more thought about what you're passionate about, what you want to do. And that's what we talk about on this show, taking your hobby to your jobby. Now, that said, Joni, we know that comes with some certain things, right? So it's when it's things that you enjoy and then you all of a sudden are starting to move toward doing this for a living. The dangers of, is that going to take the shine off the apple? Is that going to make it feel not enjoyable, as a hobby and stuff like that? So today we want to talk about what are the lessons learned from year one, because you guys are 1 year in, right? Just about at this point. So
yeah, just over. Yeah.
Tell us how you kind of launched the whole business. Like, how did you guys get your start and said, okay, like this is the beginning of the business? Obviously, there's paperwork and stuff, but did you guys go to a trade show? What did you do?
Yeah, so we did the paperwork side like in June of last year. We went to TFCon Baltimore, so that's a Transformers convention, and we actually had going for us that it was, so many conventions got skipped. So
Right.
Everybody was excited about this one coming back, and it happened to be Baltimore's only like an hour south of us. So it was close to it because that one does move around. So we were like, okay, well, we're just going to go there. We're going to launch our first product there. That was in October.
Okay.
So we made our first product, printed as many as we could before we got there, got all of our branding and stuff together, our website together and everything. And, so that it was ready to launch when we showed up at the show.
Okay.
And we sold out of our product when we were there. And we had people placing orders and, networking and all that stuff too. And so we figured, hey, if we sold out here with the people that are directly our fans, and that's how we wanted to connect with them anyway, because it's like, face to face with the people that, know exactly what it is that we're doing. Right. So from there, we just kind of, we're entirely online presence other than when we go to a show. So we launched there and then just tried to, spread the word kind of from there.
So I think we both, Andrew and I both have a similar kind of launch story as well. And it occurs to me now, I know I never framed it this way, but it is such a great way to get ideas off the ground to go to these types of trade shows. So we launched our company back in 2018, 17, 18.
It was 2018 for us.
Yeah. At IRF, the East Coast Rap Festival. And it was the same thing. Like we just kind of got a table. We're just kind of trying out like, hey, let's see if anybody likes this storage box thing that we're doing. And it was such a great validating way. One, you're like having a direct engagement with people. You're having conversations, and you're where the rubber meets the road, right? And so, luckily, your experience was it was well received. You probably got some good feedback. You met some good people. You sold out, which is like, okay, we must be onto something here, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a great way to test. Dip your toe in, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I like that starting strategy. Andrew, what did it feel like for you guys when you first put yourselves out there?
Well, we took a little bit of a different approach, right? We did a Kickstarter campaign just before IRF, and we went to IRF at the tail end of that Kickstarter campaign. So, we were trying to kind of dip our toes into the online aspect before we even, went to the trade show. But it was when we went to the trade show that, where we actually got so much valuable feedback and where people were actually able to get what we were doing beyond just, throwing up a website online.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in complete agreement. Like it's one of those really unique ways of launching a concept or, just even getting, see if the idea has legs.
Well, so. It's such a low barrier to entry for the most part. I mean, I know a lot of these things you have to pay a little booth fee or something like that, but a lot of them, want to support people getting started and stuff. So, Joni, let me ask you this. Had you guys gone and maybe it was more of a lackluster reception and stuff like that, do you think that would have changed, the whole thing? Like, did you kind of go with not being sure that you guys were going to be a company in mind, or you were like, okay, we're already a company, this is established, and this is just our first thing? Like, were you testing or were you committed?
Well, from the beginning, we kind of committed to, at least, like a year, 18 months, because I know from startups, like you can't
Yeah.
you got to give it some time. You
Yeah.
can't just
You need some
do
runway.
one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But my husband's thing that he says all the time is like, well, I think it's cool, but I don't know if everybody else does. So, he kind of wanted the validation of like somebody else thinks it's cool too. So
Sure.
that was, that was good for him. For me, I was like, regardless of what happens, we're going to need to give this our best effort for a chunk of time until, till we really make a decision on it. And I think that that's important to really have that commitment from the beginning, because even though you're kind of dipping your toe in from a side gig standpoint, you
Yeah.
still need to give it your all in the time that you're giving it.
Right.
If you're only going to give it 1 hour a night and weekends or whatever it is, you have to be all in on that time, because there's no way that it can succeed until you give it the amount of time it needs to work. Yeah.
For sure.
And it's nice. The show was nice too, because it, not only are you getting feedback from other people, but it also forces you to learn how to tell other people about your product too. It starts you on kind of that little bit of marketing side. Like, it's one thing to design your website and have stuff, but to turn around and say, this is what it is and this is what it's for, and explain to somebody that's never seen it before, it's kind of good practice to, on the marketing side too, I think.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, I mean, it is so critical. I mean, it would feel like a completely different business experience if we didn't have the shows that we went to. Like, I have said on past episodes, guys, and stuff, I'm a big advocate for, at the very least, the networking benefit of that, right? And it makes it so tangible when you get there and you show a brand to somebody in a way where they're like, oh, there are people tied to this. We've talked in the past about customer service, and when you're getting angry emails and people see a website and they have no context, whether you're in like some massive skyscraper somewhere with like 200 employees or if you're just one person working out of your basement. Like, we kind of have that advantage in this day and age with the internet of like making ourselves look bigger than we may be, or small. It's not, you don't have that context, right? And so these shows are such a good way to connect and to interact on both ends, right? I think, like, understanding the community, you guys, I think, did a great job identifying like a niche, something you're passionate about, so 80s collectible memorabilia, let's just call it that for right now. And there's obviously a large community around that. And we've seen so many great maker businesses get started in that way. Like, find something you're passionate about, find where that intersects with a community of other people that are passionate about it, and then get it out there and see how it does.
Yep.
I think it's a good pattern. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to kind of dive a little deeper on is you mentioned giving it a time frame, a period of time that you're going to commit to. We kind of did something similar with Gloop, where we kind of committed saying, okay, we're going to see this out for at least a year. But I'm kind of curious, what kind of planning went into that thinking? Did you like build some spreadsheets? Did you figure out some costing? Did you figure out how much money you would need to make in order to see this thing through? I'm just curious, because I know we kind of did similar things, but
it's a great question.
Well, we're a little bit backwards in that way. I mean, I'm all about the numbers, of course, because being an accountant, but I didn't want to kill it with numbers. Like our costing stuff in the beginning, we kind of didn't know exactly what our costs were going to be. So, for pricing our original things, we kind of just had to look at the market, what other people were doing, similar stuff. And because it's unique, we couldn't exactly do it. So we kind of started on that from a pricing standpoint. I definitely know how much we need to sell to make it full time. So that's like a goal number that we have. But I also had goals along the way. I mean, we did have some our own money that we put in. So it's like, first thing is, let's see if we can get to where we make that back. Not that we necessarily paid ourselves back, but just, did we sell enough to make it worth the investment? Let's offset that to start with.
Sure.
So there's like little things like that along the way. But as we've gone through, now that we have some data to look at, I definitely go back and I'm, pretty serious about how we look at our pricing and our income and output and all that kind of stuff too. Because I think, since I'm a numbers person, it makes sense to me. But even as a small business, I think you really need to know your numbers, because you can't make those kinds of decisions. It's very hard to price if you don't know what all of your costs are and what kind of
Right.
categories they fall into. How much is your time worth and all that kind of thing. I knew that those were hurdles that people have trouble overcoming. So I was really focusing on that early, to like, as soon as we could get to that point where I had some data to break it down and say, okay, now when we have the next new product, we know that like we need to add 20% to cover our supplies and, our consumables and all that kind of stuff.
That's a fantastic point. We've talked about in the past. There's a lot of blind spots, right? And a lot of that data mining. We have the luxury of having these analytical tools that we can use. Whether it's our own sales data or whatnot to look at, but we don't even take the time to look at it a lot of the time. And I talk to Andrew about this all the time. I feel like I'm flying blind, right? Like, when's the last time I looked at the balance sheet? When's the last time I looked at the P&L? Like, and then how have I broken that down on a product, level thing? So you can spend a lot of time, obviously, just getting into the nitty-gritty of the whole thing. But talk to me for a second about the balance of that versus like, well, there's only two of us, there's only so many hours in the day, you're working from home, you have kids as well, there's other constraints in life, like figuring out that priority. Now you guys are lucky because you're a partnership and you can kind of divide and conquer in a lot of regards. But like, have you had scenarios where you're disagreeing about where you need to be focusing your energy and your time?
Not necessarily disagreeing per se, but it's just, we're short on time. It's it's our worst thing and our best thing at the same time. Our lack of time forces us to focus. Certainly like laser focus.
Yes.
So we each work. He works out of the home most of the time. I work from home. And then, as you mentioned, we have 3 small children. So, we have about 10 minutes a day to ourselves. It's like,
if that, right?
If you hide in a closet.
Assuming you can keep your eyes open. Yeah. No, I know that feeling all too well.
We had to decide, like, basically somebody has to watch the kids and do all the house stuff by themselves while the other person's working on the business, which before with 3 kids, we were dividing and conquering that piece. So it's like, all right, well, now somebody's going to have to take on the home duties while the other person works on the business. And so we try to balance that as far as, okay, well, this is your night to work on the business. This is my night to work on the business, to keep us sane from that. Because both of those jobs are difficult and stressful,
I can't imagine, honestly, like having a partner that I not only living with and doing this, but then doing a job. That takes a really special, strong relationship. So kudos to you guys for figuring out. I'm jealous of it, because it's like finding people that you can trust and communicate with well and work well. And then on top of that, see them all the time. What work, personal, all that stuff is just an amazing thing. Tell us, guys, in the chat what your experience is with you, where you're at on your project. Are you one man wolf pack? Are you do you have a partner? Do you have a significant other that's helping? I love hearing what other people's setups are in that. So what little pieces of advice can you give us for making that partnership work for you guys?
Well, I would say number one, don't leave your partner out of it. A lot of people are like, well, I'm the one that, not in a selfish way, but like, I'm the designer, so I'm going to have to take responsibility for all this stuff.
Yeah.
I think that, somebody else can do other things and help in other ways, or at least be there as a sounding board if they understand what's going on with your business. If you take it all yourself and, just grind it out constantly, they're never going to understand what's going on. So even if it's just letting them know that they have an understanding of the ups and downs, what's happening, and struggles and successes and that kind of stuff, I think that's important to just share on that level, because it is very stressful. There's a lot of things that don't go your way and things that you don't expect. And then plus you've got the rest of your life, general stress that you're dealing with too. So, that communication side is important. It helps that we have opposing views on things too. It just, I honestly, we've been together for 20 years. So, we know each other really well, but we're very different. He's artistic, but he's not like he calls himself a realist. I call him a pessimist, but he's a realist. I'm a realist. I'm like, okay, well, so I'm very logical, but I'm also very optimistic. So that it's kind of like an interesting mixture.
It's all about the balance, man.
But
That's great.
so I plan things out a lot, but I also have big,
Okay.
optimistic, goals for that kind of stuff. And he's kind of like, well, we probably should try and, hit it a little more, evenly like that. But I think having somebody, that does complement your weaknesses, look at yourself and know what your weaknesses are. And if it's not your life partner, somebody else that you can at least communicate with to help you on that stuff. Because if you're by yourself, you are, like you said, you're going to have a lot of blind spots because you don't know what you don't know, and you're going to see things a certain way if you don't have somebody that has that other viewpoint to look at things.
Absolutely. A couple of comments from the chat. Adam from Powerbelt 3D says his wife helps do the box packing and part sorting. She's way better at it than I am. That's great. Way to recognize your strengths and weaknesses, and that's awesome that you have that help. Grant from 3 Day Musketeers, mostly lone wolf, but he has contractors. That's good. That's a good way to find other help. Let's see. Griffin's Closet Print Farm. Welcome, my friend. My wife works remote from home. We made our home office and studio in opposite sides of the house so that we have that little moment apart. So that's an interesting point. Like having a little bit of separation, a little space of your own, but still within easy walking distance. What's your guys' setup? Are you in the same office, Joni, or do you have your own little space?
Yeah, well, we have side by side from the office setup, but the shop is in the basement. So, and then we've got the packing area, shipping and packing area is one's half, and then the printing area is the other half. So if we're both down there, which is pretty rare, we usually have to alternate. We're on two halves of the shop there is a wall in between. Yeah. We have a lot of disagreements about the music that is played down there in the shop. So
if that's your biggest challenge,
if Genesis comes on, I have to leave the room. Really,
I can't dance.
Do not.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
That's our biggest disagreement, really.
Listen, if that's your biggest disagreement, you're doing pretty well, right? Because you can always throw the headphones on. There's ways to get around that. So okay, so you're literally doing it all. You're working from home. You're married. You're raising 3 small children. You're doing this. It's still a side hustle though for you. You're a year in, but you're not full time with it. So obviously, how many hours would you say you guys are able to devote per week to this on average?
He spends usually about 3 nights a week in the shop, depending on what's going on with the family, and really that's only like from dinner time to bedtime, so maybe 2 hours. There's not. He's pretty tapped out. He works 10-hour days, so that's that's adding a lot to his day.
It's a long day. Yeah.
So yeah, what's that? It's like 6 hours, and then he'll work 4 hours or so on a Saturday sometimes. Now that it's getting to be football season, Sundays are going to be sacrificed for the business a little bit there. He's a big Niners fan, so Saturday or Sunday afternoons are going to be not devoted to the business.
So was he watching preseason?
So like probably 10 hours.
Okay. 10 hours.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So I'd say probably about 10 hours a week, and that doesn't count all the little things in between, answering emails and, social media messages and packing boxes and, running to the post office and that kind of stuff.
Sure. So with that limited time, how do you guys prioritize what is really going to help move the needle for your business? Do you have like processes, or is it just first closest fire, let's put that out and move on to the next one? I'm curious because this is something we struggle with internally all the time as well.
Yeah.
Well, we do try to talk at least once a week, maybe every other week, depending on how things are going, just about the priorities of stuff. We try and just like catch a quick conversation that gets interrupted 27 times, but we do have a conversation. just about like what's the next product coming up, are we in the middle of a launch, because we kind of have like so far we've had like just launches, so we'll concentrate on a particular product, get it all ready, prototyping, start putting it out there, getting some buzz going, launch it, we've been sending things out to reviewers and things like that to try and get a wider audience. So, keeping an eye on when the reviews drop and knowing that our sales will change, and then kind of giving us some leeway after that to know we've got to do order fulfillment. We take most of our stuff on pre-order so that we can know how many orders, so we don't get too many at one time. So we'll say we're going to have a pre-order for a month so that we know going in, like if we've got 20 of something, that you can only print 4 on the build plate at a time, and they take 8 hours to print and then clean, and all the other stuff. So it's like we have to try to chart that out and just make sure that we're doing the nice, you can run prints overnight and that kind of stuff is nice. And just try and keep track of that. And I try and let him know, like I handle all of the orders, order fulfillment stuff. So I get a notice every time we have orders. So I don't even usually talk to him about orders unless it's something like, hey, you're going to need to print more of these. Some of the small things we can print like 40 at a time, and he'll just knock out a whole batch, and then we've got them there to fulfill right away. The big stuff is what we do the pre-order things for. So we do try and like sit down and be like, okay, here's, what we're in the midst of right now. We've got this many pending orders, and here's the next thing from a design standpoint. So he tries to split his time between, new prints, cleaning, curing, finishing, and design, because we've always got to have something coming up too. So if he spends too much time down there, just knocking out product, then we don't have something coming down the pike either. So we try to revisit that and make sure that he has time to just get, plus that's really what he likes to do, is the design side. He would sit there and tinker with it forever if I didn't. Like
shiny object syndrome. We talk
the blinders on sometimes,
Yeah. So I'm looking.
That's kind of my function too. Is like, okay, we need to like finalize this thing here.
Let's get this show on the road. I'm looking at your website right now, and it has a disclaimer front and center. When you get on there, each item is custom made, so variations will occur in each product, and each may slightly be different. Shades of color may vary from the pictures shown. Just some side effect of resin printing and how your dyeing process. In-stock orders will ship within 3 days. Items on back order are fulfilled in the order they are received and will be shipped when complete, typically 2 to 3 weeks after ordering. So you're immediately setting the tone for your customer base here of the scale of your operation and whatnot. And I think this is great. I think that transparency is good. I look through, you have your stuff that's out of stock, but there's a lot of you're a very visual business. People want to see what you're able to do and stuff like that. So I can understand the importance of having just things up there so people can understand who you guys are, what your capabilities are, what you're offering. When we look at this and we talk about the amount of time that we have available to it, you had mentioned that we always got to be coming up with something new. That I would say for us has been an interesting challenge, because as a maker, I think that resonates, and you guys chime in on the chat. I think that resonates with all of us, right? We always want to be improving. We always want to be doing new things. And we feel that if we don't, we're going to lose relevancy. We're going to lose the appeal. Now, as a business owner, I don't know, I heard you say it. And so maybe you're in a different space. You have a different customer base. I understand. Like, you want to be releasing product. But knowing how time intensive that is versus, say, scaling the ones that you have been, great sellers and stuff like that, and repeating, like, how do you strike a balance there?
Well, we haven't quite got, we have so many ideas and so many things that we want to get out that we're still kind of in that stage of like, just as fast as we can try and get new stuff out. Because we want to get out to different, there's subgroups of those larger groups too. The thing about our product that is a little bit different is there's no, well, I don't want to say there's no repeat buyers, but there's no repeat buyer of that particular item. You have that figure, you get that accessory, and that's the one that you're going to buy for that one dude. So, he has that, but we do have people who then come back because they have a collection and know that they can get stuff, or they'll, say, hey, do you make this for this? And we've gotten suggestions from, very often like have a list basically of suggestions from people
Hmm.
as potential later projects to see like, this is what people are interested in.
Sure.
Because, depends on how many figures that particular one sold, how many people
Right.
own it and all that kind of stuff. So we don't circle back quite that often right now on our current product. The cool thing that I didn't know when we started that I kind of just figured out is that our stuff is for display. So people buy it, they take a picture of it. They put it in their display, they share it to social media because they like the way that it looks. So
cool.
the nice thing is that when we send out a batch of orders, our customers are doing advertising for us a lot of times. So then they have different groups of people, and then they look and they're like, oh, cool, where'd you get that from? And then as soon as they get it, they take a picture and send it. And we don't ask people to do that, but it's just, that's the whole point. We want it to look cool. And so, like I said, we didn't even think of that as far as, on purpose that we wanted people to do that, but they like it so much that they share it. So we kind of don't have to go back too much because it's, it spreads on its own so far with the stuff that we've done. But getting to the next group of people, like the next thing that we want to do is for gargoyles collectors. So started having a jump because that opened back up in Disney Plus. And so now that group of people is growing, and NECA put out some figures for it. So there's a design flaw in the first figure that we're trying to fix. And so we've had it up there for a long time. Like, we want to do this, but we keep like having to push it back a little bit because, now we had a QC issue with this. We had to fix this. And then we had more orders on this than we thought. So we had to push it back a little bit. So, we're always trying to be I always say this backwards. Over promise and other way around.
Under promise.
under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
There we go. That's the right one.
Yeah.
On times, because I feel like as long as that's a big thing that I knew going in that we wanted to be super customer oriented, and I think in any business you need to be very transparent. If you mess up, tell them you mess up, and people just want to know what's going on.
Absolutely.
It does not help anyone to cover things up or to not say anything, because they just assume the worst. We had our first batch of something shrank and we didn't realize it did. And we sent out 20 of them, and it was, our second product. So we were flipping out. I'm like, oh my God, we just sent out all this stuff to, wrong. And I just immediately sent out the first person that came back and said it didn't fit. I was like, okay, we're just going to send out an email to every single person that bought this and said, if your thing, we're sending out new ones. I didn't even ask if it didn't fit. We just sent out new ones to the people that I knew that we did it. Because you have to, you just have to do that, And I think you can't build confidence in your brand if you don't respond to your customers.
100%. 100%. So, I think the answer to this is obviously it's going to be different on your mark. It might, when I say this, the question of how do you establish priorities? Are you going to be trying to release, more frequently? Are you going to try to grow? So what are your goals for the bit? If somebody is asking you okay, is your goal to just have as many products? What is your plan for growth and sustainability and next level? And are you trying to get to a point where you're both full-time, or are you happy just having this as kind of a side project? What's your goal?
Well, my goal versus his goal is a little bit different, but I am very happy in my job. I love what I do. And I love helping, but I don't think that, I don't want to say that. It's always possible to be large enough for my portion to be full-time, but it'd be much more likely for his piece to be full-time than mine. So, it would be great if we had the reliability of income for him to go full-time. And it's possible. The job that he works in right now, he's technically a subcontractor. And so his contract has to be renewed every couple of years. The end of this year is a renewal period. So that is by the end of this year was kind of the make or break that we had to know if we had something because his contract may not be renewed. Now, given that, if it is renewed, then, I'm kind of we have to have a different conversation then. How long do we want to keep going?
Right.
burning the candle at both ends, essentially,
Right.
for some of that stuff? Or do we just kind of like just let it go as, do things that you're interested in and just do a couple things and just have it be extra, in the background there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we kind of have like a short list of things that we definitely want to get out. And then after that, it would be more like just growing in sales dollars, getting some more things out there. We have lots of ideas, and we've never done like Patreon or anything like that, but those kinds of like that set up as far as a subscription kind of model, or have people that you're sending things out to on a regular basis or doing things with, is really interesting to me. So, we've kind of talked through how we might be able to do something like that for Transformer fans, have a thing, that we send out and have some recurring revenue and some other revenue streams like that. So there's a lot of stuff, and it's just things that we don't have enough time to push out right now. So, it's that there's that gap between if you make the leap and you don't necessarily have enough revenue to sustain it right now, but then you get a whole bunch of time, so you can backfill some of that. How fast is that going to fill in versus trying to double up on your time while you're still working and get the revenue higher. There's just, that's different for everybody. Like, what's your comfort level with how high is your revenue before you decide that you're at your max and you have to have that extra time in order to make more revenue, because that's just
interesting.
That's always going to be your sticking point. I think is you're going to have a cap on how much you can sell when you're only doing it 10 hours a week. I mean, there's just
sure
about it.
So as a CPA, are you sitting here in the background kind of calculating these numbers? I know you mentioned earlier you had kind of a break even or a minimum. So are you constantly like looking and tracking this, or is it just more so a general goal that you're hoping to hit?
No, I'm looking at it. I mean, my first goal for this year was to hit 10,000 in sales, and we did do that. And that was in the first half of the year. So, 6 months with 10,000 in sales, I was happy with that. My goal before the end of the year is to have 25,000 in sales. We've got 2 conventions. We are going to IRF. I don't think we're actually going to sell anything at IRF. That's more as just like a, networking thing for us. But we have 2 other Comic-Con that we're going to, and another show. So those are all in the fall. So we're hoping that by the end of the year, that's my goal, is 25. And I think that for the first full year in business, I think that's a pretty good, and at part-time, I feel like that's a pretty good number.
That's great. No,
and I feel like as we reach those ones, then I just adjust to the next one. I always have them one and then one after that, but you can't really tell after that. I think you can just have your closest one and then maybe your big goal, but you have to use the information you learned getting there to set the next one. So, we'll adjust after that and say, okay, well, it didn't grow quite as fast, or this one took off and we didn't really think it was. So, and like I was saying before, like, the difference between do you want to sell a whole bunch of small items, or do you want to sell less big items? We kind of have a balance on that too, because you can sell $110 items or $100 items, and that's a big difference as far as logistics.
For sure it is.
On that.
Yeah. So on that note, are you now this far along in your business, about a year in, are you guys kind of defining your future projects based on the amount of revenue and profit you can make from that? Or is it just, I think this is cool still, I think there's a market for this, so are you just going after that? So basically what I'm asking is there a calculated decision happening in the products that you're designing?
Not really. I mean, we know, we look at the market. We try to see how popular certain figures are and stuff. But the things that we make, as an accessory to a figure may or may not be as popular. We do try and make connections with people and ask them about stuff. We ask for input on the development of things. And if we get a lot of interest in it, then we can usually tell. Dollar-wise, we have no idea what that's going to convert to. It's just, we just don't know, because we don't know how many people own the figure. We have seen a huge difference between different types of collectors. So like Transformers collectors and the thing that we design for, the figure itself, some of them, they're like $250 figures. So if you're a person that invests in $250 collectibles, buying like a $13 part for that, not a big decision for them.
Right.
So that one's an easy one. Then we've got turtle collectors where a 2-pack of turtles is $50. Well, the pieces that we make are $50. So, they're talking about like much bigger investment versus what they're used to. So we've learned that the market, depending on who it is, the type of collector it is different too. So we know that the turtle things are going to have to be a niche within the turtle market, like big buyers of turtle stuff. But so we've started to learn a little bit about it, but we're not quite like, we don't know quite enough about it to do. But yeah, so that's why we try and mix the genres of what we're doing too, like not release too many things in one line too often because the collectors are different.
That makes sense.
Two interesting, points on that. One, the first thing you were talking about, like, and Andrew's alluding to, I always say like that which is best for the business in terms of growth and dollar revenue and all that stuff oftentimes is in direct conflict with what we as makers are passionate about, right? And it's the hardest thing to do because it's like, I don't want to make 10,000 of these, even though that's going to make us like, it's like the kid that doesn't want to do their homework, even though, or eat your vegetables, it's like, those are the vegetables a lot of the time. Because we wanna go out and play with new product and innovate and so it's like and striking that balance is so critical. I would say in terms of like maintaining your own personal sanity and the whole thing, because like you can have a very successful business, doing 1 or 2 products that just sell gangbuster. Chuck Hellebuck is a great example of that. He's made an incredible amount of money selling the mailbox flags, for a mailbox, and it's not sexy, it's not glamorous, but my God, does that make him money? It's just like great, and but you need both, right? You are never going to get anywhere if you can't reconcile the books, if you can't pay for it all, if you can't pay for the next thing, and so that there's that yin and yang to the whole thing. The other piece is knowing thy marketplace is so unbelievably critical in the sense what you're talking about. Know the price points of the things that you are trying to accessorize, and as much as the crowd out there is going to be asking you for all kinds of stuff. Like we get requests all the time. I get emails all the time from people like, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? When are you going to do that? And you can't tell them like, I'm never going to do that because you're literally the only person that wants that. They're like 5, people and stuff like that. Thank you so much for your feedback. We appreciate it. We will take it under advisement. I don't have any plans at this time. Like you said, be upfront about it. Communicate, transparency. That's all 100% totally right. But, weighing that thing. And so I've talked to other people, like we focus on the tool sets that we use and the customers we go after. We like Prusa equipment because that's a good mid-grade, like people have a certain expectation of quality. They've paid a certain amount. So that they're accustomed to paying a certain amount. And so we want to try to tailor products to accessorize a certain type of price point that is going to be reasonable. Selling accessories for people that are in the $99 ender market or a small, something like that, it's going to be a really tough thing because you're talking about 10, 20, 50, 100% of the total cost of that tool set already. So there is no shame, I would say, in saying no. There's the famous Jobsian thing. It's like, it's not what you say yes to, it's what you say no to. Balance that thing and then be real with yourself. Is this, I'm doing this because I'm a little bit passionate about it and that's fine? Or am I doing this because I do think this has legs and it's going to go somewhere? I guarantee you 1 year in, like you've probably already started to pick out things from like, we thought this was going to do better. We didn't, like, this was kind of a dud. But the benefit of being in the space and having the tool sets that we do, 3D printing, we can pivot on a dime. And you only lose when you stop. So you decide, well, we learned something from that, like you said, and we move on to the next thing. You're throwing a lot of nuggets of wisdom out at us, Joni, and I love it. It's resonating with me 100%. I want to talk, I know we're closing in. We got about 15 minutes left. Guys, if you guys have any questions in the chat, hit them with us. In fact, apologize. Chris did ask a good question earlier, and I wanted to send it your way here, Joni. He says, what kind of process tools and software do you use for order tracking, CRM, supplies, accounting, etc., if any?
So we're very low tech in that aspect. We have like, order tracking and that kind of stuff. We just use Woocommerce, and it's on our website. They have, the mobile app and everything. So that keeps everything in there. We do use MailChimp we send out a newsletter, and that links right into our WooCommerce too. So we can have people sign up for our newsletter. We send blasts out with new products and stuff. And I use QuickBooks Online for accounting side, which is really works for a very wide range of business sizes. And they innovate that all the time. So
we both use that as well. Are you tracking inventory with it, or are you not at that level of sophistication with it?
No, I use actually WooCommerce to track inventory. So I put our products in stock in there and then track it through there. Because I just bring things in bulk into QuickBooks because the detail, of doing it twice right now, we don't really need that much. And it's a little bit hard to track sometimes because of we don't do it as much now, but we used to offer like painted and unpainted, so like print, scrape it off and send it. And then other ones we would paint.
Oh, because people would paint their own kind of thing.
Yeah, but and it's like a hobby. Some people you would think that's one of those things. Like way less people want to do it themselves. If they're buying something like that, they want it done and they want it to look nice. So I'm like, okay, well, very few of those sold. So why, don't even worry about having that as an option on there. It's pretty uncommon. So yeah, we're pretty low tech on that. We use as much free software as possible right now. We use, excuse me. So he uses FreeCAD for his, for his designs.
Shout out FreeCAD, brave soul.
Had a huge learning curve in the beginning with that one, and I think we almost lost a computer out the window in the beginning. But he has gotten used to that, and our what do you call it? What's our slicer software? Chichibox is our slicer. Which was coded to the board of our printer. Actually, we didn't have a choice on that one.
It's kind of standard.
We try and get away with those minimum kind of things, and it tracks pretty well. I mean, the the WooCommerce part. Excuse me. Even if we're at a show, we can use that to take orders right then, and we use like QR codes and that kind of stuff to run products through. So it's worked pretty well from a somewhat low tech standpoint. We have a lot of international customers, which is really cool. I don't know why I think it's so cool, but it is. It's just like somebody in New Zealand has our stuff. We get a lot of Australian buyers. I don't know how. I don't know how they find out about it, but it's just cool.
I remember having that same realization.
This to Australia.
It is cool. It is super cool.
I had that same reaction. Yeah.
And it makes you feel small. It makes you realize like the scale and the potential of this thing. Like you're in a very niche little space, but like when you think about the overall scope of the world, like it makes you feel very small in the world, and to be able to influence people on other continents and stuff with your product, like it's a very satisfying feeling. I think that's a awesome point.
Yeah, we had an order from a country I've never heard of one time. I was like, I honestly have never heard of
which
this
country was that country?
It was like, I can't even think of what it was now. It was
it Eritrea? I only learned about Eritrea
island in the Philippines or something.
Okay.
And
all right.
I actually ended up not being able to ship it there because of COVID restrictions. But it was crazy. I got that. I'm like, what abbreviation is this? I had to look it up to figure out what country it was. But the point behind that was WooCommerce also handles, all the international stuff on that side really well too. So that seems to translate pretty well across the board for our stuff, at least.
That's great. I mean, we've talked at length before about the perils of international shipping and what that can entail.
And stuff. Small stuff, it's nice.
You have like small stuff.
I
was gonna say that is that's the place. That's the place to be. Honestly, small product, I think is like. I look at that. I'm like, how can we have smaller product? Because it's cheaper to ship, but you can tell small product, but high value, right? So it's like shipping
Yeah.
diamonds, like the, yeah. And
Shipping
then you got to
diamonds.
worry about insuring everything. Yeah, no, I don't know that there's anything perfect. Joni, we talked offline a little bit earlier about something that I want to make sure we talk about here today, and that's kind of what we were calling like the triad of like deciding where you want to be as a business. Of there's the saying like good, fast, and cheap. Pick two that I think a lot of you guys have heard. I use that exhaustively in my web development world in the past, right? You can't have it all. But looking at it from the company side, and you say like, okay, we have to pick kind of where we want to play. Are we trying to be really high quality? Are we trying to be low cost? Are we trying to be really fast to deliver? What is the balance, and have you moved around? Like where are you guys trying to position yourself given that triad?
Well, that was one of the very first decisions that we made, really, from a more detailed standpoint, was that we were going to be high quality. That was why we went resin printing. It was just like because again, our first customer was a collector of a $250 item. So you don't want to put a piece of crap on that, like you want it to look really nice, really clean. And the parts have details, in them. So the very first thing we made was a throne for this figure. It's
The
got all kinds of
Grimlock
designs.
throne. I see it
The
right
Grimlock
here.
throne.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
our very first product.
It's a good
So,
throne.
it has all kinds of designs all over it, all kinds of things. And so we wanted it to look really nice, have the design pop, and be really clean and clear. And also these little tiny swords and a little tiny crown that goes with it. So, to be able to make something big that has a lot of detail, but also the small things that go with it. So that was very early on. We just said, quality, it's going to be more expensive. We knew that from the outset, again, because we chose what lane we were going to be in. Going resin printing and starting off with a $3,500 printer, your sunk costs in the beginning are high. So it's going to be, it's going to be a little bit more expensive to do that in the beginning. So we're kind of in the middle as far as fast goes. We do, on the small items, we do try and print batches so that we have things that we can send out right away, things that we know that are popular now and that we'll get orders for, a few a day or whatever it is. So we can just go down there, pop it in an envelope and send it out. We don't want to have to print every single thing that somebody, orders. But the big stuff, we don't want to keep a ton in stock because we're just not sure how fast that's going to move. And as people think that 3D printing means that you just push a button and out pops a product, and it doesn't. Reality is not that.
What
so,
the hell you say?
We have printed a lot of stuff on straight on the build plate. We have been working on getting as many things, if we can, print them in place as possible, so that we don't have to deal with supports and all that. So anything that has a flat spot that we can work with, we do try and do that. Okay. Big things, that's not possible to do. Right. So, you're dealing with cleaning the supports and resin cleaning itself, and dealing with the chemicals and all that. That's a whole process you have to go through to clean them, cure them, finish them, sand them. And then sometimes we put paint on it. Sometimes we just clear coat it, but it does need to be clear coated because of UV. So, there's still always some post-processing. So that process is always going to take us some time. So we know that we're going to have to fall on the, maybe longer end of taking time too. But as you mentioned, we try to be very clear about that on our website. We always tell people, if they ask how long it's going to take, we always tell them longer than what we think it's going to take. Just because we want to make sure that it gets out there on time. And sometimes things take longer than you expect. Sometimes you print something that doesn't fit together.
Always do.
Right. Like our screen is I think it might starting to go, because like if you print something in one corner of the screen, it's different than the same thing that you print in another piece of the screen. And I'm like, oh my God, stop it. So then they're not consistent, so we go through, we have to fit our poor little transformers. We've got like the guinea pig down there that I fit every single piece into as it comes out there. Yeah. Poor guy gets tired of having pieces snapped in and out of him because we got to check everything. So, that's part of our quality. So we decided, like, we're going to do quality, and may not be fast and it may not be cheap, but that's our focus. And when people say like, whoa, man, that's a lot, that's expensive. Like, well, our prices aren't for everybody. That's what I say. Prices aren't for everybody.
I just go, it's not for
I
you.
get
If you're
I
saying
love
that,
that.
clearly you're
I
not in
love
our
that.
market
Yeah.
if you think it's too expensive, and I think that's a nice way to, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just
no,
saying
that
it's
is a
not for
nice
everybody,
way to say that.
Mhm.
What always cracks me up about that, allow me this rant for just a second, because everybody knows I love to rant,
Oh,
and that I'm very sensitive to the whole price complainer thing. Like, I get it. Everybody's wants to keep, they got their hard earned, excuse me, hard earned money, and they're trying to keep as much of it as possible. But the fact that people are motivated to take time out of their day to email you to admonish you that your stuff is too expensive just cracks me up, right? It's like I get it, but
Yeah.
I think stuff's too expensive all the time. I would love to pay a lot less for a Porsche. I don't write them and say like, when are you going to make a Porsche that I can afford, or a Porsche or whatever, but people do in this space. Is there something about makers in particular? I think because it's like you're saying, we try to find free tools. We have this expectation, and we're always comparing it against something that we can do ourselves. We're just looking at it, and we just say like, oh, well, this is only 5 cents worth of plastic, and therefore it's only, like, stop with the bomb analysis, people. Like, it's not about the pieces. It's about the amount of time and mental energy and development hours that go into it. We know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we as makers often always never value our own time properly. And so we're
so bad at
we're
that.
always looking at it, and it's like, well, I can do this for half that price, or whatever.
And
but what we're not
never sleep
accounting
and
for
never
is the
eat.
amount of time and effort that goes into it. So
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and we don't buy any designs, everything's designed from scratch. And so you don't know how it's going to come out. It comes out one way on the screen, and then you print it, and that's a whole other animal. And then since we're dyeing our prints, it depends on what color it is. We have to mess with that and make sure that comes out the right way too, because we'll prototype in one color sometimes just to get something right, only to switch to it being a dyed print and then have it, change dimensions on us because of the shrink and that kind of stuff. So it's just, and people just don't think. Part of it is just ignorance of 3D printing process itself. I think people don't realize what has to go into it, especially resin printing, but I think in general, and part of it is just that people, when they want something, they they want to be able to dictate how much it costs them. In some aspects, it's like,
you're not paying for this one. You're paying for the 10,000 that came before it, that it took to get to this one the way that didn't work.
For
but
you
nobody
not having
ever
to deal with it, and you not having to buy that color, paint or what, any of those things. Like, I mean, do you have to buy rubber gloves in bulk so that you can print this? No, you do not. So it's like, do you have to buy gallons of IPA?
Pound sand.
You don't.
So I don't know. Do you respond to those people, just out of curiosity? Because like I have a weird obsession where I just need to. I hate being ghosted. And so it's like, I need to respond. And a lot of times it's like a kill them with kindness, snarky kind of thing. Like, I'm so sorry that it doesn't make our, but there's really, it's probably a waste of time.
My husband's not allowed to reply to comments. He's banned from that because he will not do it in a professional way. He'll be like, do you realize how much time that took me to do? I'm like, no, let me handle this, please. I will sometimes, like, especially depending on how public it is. If it's an email, that's one thing. That's straight to you. If it's a comment on something that's out there, we'll usually say something like, our prices include, just to kind of educate a little bit. And usually you don't hear anything else after that. And if it's somebody that, some people will defend you too. I mean, we have had people come back and say, this is a custom thing, and I got it and it's great quality, and that's what you're paying for. So that's always nice too, to have somebody come in with that. But I mean, we have a formula I went through, and it's like, what is your time worth? Whether it's, what would you get paid for your salary if you were doing that job? If you were a 3D designer, what would your salary be? Or what would you like to make given your skills? That kind of thing. So I think anybody can do that from a pricing perspective. They could look it up and, let's say, just to use round numbers, if you want if your job you think is worth $125,000 salary a year, that's at a normal 40-hour week type of job.
Yeah.
That's $60 an hour,
Yeah.
So every
that-
minute that you spend on a product costs you $1.
Yeah.
Or on a job of any kind, maybe not even a product. Every minute you spend fooling around, not doing something that's making money, costs you $1. So if you, spend an hour messing with something that's not going to make you $60, then stop doing it.
So guys,
that's kind of like,
I got to
that's
interrupt
kind
you
of
really
where
quick.
we go with that.
I need everybody to just turn up your volume right here. And if you're not paying attention to anything else, stop doing what you're doing and listen to Joni here for a second, because this is literally what it is. Okay. We all struggle with Maker. Andrew and I still to this time, like we are not valuing our time properly. And you think about, you see with artists too, like when successful artists are out there shouting like, do not cheapen the whole marketplace for everybody by offering, your art for not getting paid for what you're worth. But do the math. Sit down. The quick and easy, I've always seen, Joni, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're thinking, if you're trying to translate on an hourly basis, like an annual salary, basically just divide by 2. So $125K a year divided by 2, 60 and change an hour would be a good rough thing. And then analyze like, how long did it take me to do that, and put that into your pricing and use that to determine like, is there a market for this, right? But when you're pricing it, stop with just the bomb piece. Like, we all know that, yes, there's all these parts, but it's the time that's going to kill you every time. And why do we skip this? Why is that such a common pitfall, Joni? Do you feel like that for people to not account for that?
I think the main thing is because you enjoy it. If you're doing something that you love, designing something, time, you don't even pay attention to the time. You don't realize that you sat there for 2 hours, adjusting some tiny aspect of something maybe that didn't perhaps need to be done, or maybe it does, sometimes that's in there too. But I think it's very easy to undervalue your time when you're doing something that you enjoy. When you're doing something that you hate, a minute feels like an hour. The difference between those two things. So it's easy to be like, oh, I didn't spend that long on it. It wasn't just that big a deal. Like for us, again, time is a premium for us. So it's like you just traded 3 hours of your weekend, not seeing your kids, not doing this, So if you did that, we better have something to put out there for that 3-4 hours, a chunk of time you just took out on a Saturday. And it's going to be something that we're going to price according to how precious that time is to us, your time.
Sure.
And so if you're printing some of our bigger things have multiple pieces, you're fitting it together. You got to clean all of it. You got to cure all of it. You got to, dry it, paint it, fool around with it. It takes you an hour to make one of those things. That's outside of even your design time. Absolute minimum, starting price is 60 plus your materials, plus, like I said before, you've got all your supplies. So what kind of percentage does it look like? 20%, add on for all of the other stuff you have to get, and all the other things you have to pay for on the side, like your, website and all that kind of stuff too. You have to include some of those things on there, and people are just like, oh, markup. Well, it's not really. You have to really look at it and say a little bit of all of those things
markup.
I got your
went
markup.
into that, and especially time, because you don't have the dollars in front of you to look at, but your time, you've got those dollars. And so my brother is a small business owner too. Now he's a welder, so he's hands-on,
and he's service-based too.
Okay.
Okay.
Guy. So he knows like time is money. And if, he knows if he spends X amount of time doing something that is not making him money,
and guys,
he basically sees that as he just lost that money,
Never skimp on paying your welder, guys. Like you're going to pay big time. The welders are worth every penny. Same thing with electricians. Like these trade and plumbers. Don't mess with these people, because your life will be miserable really quick. Very good points all around. And one thing I want to add to that is, yes, as makers, like we enjoy what we're doing, and therefore we don't account for it. But think about how much more enjoyable your time is when you're enjoying your work and you're getting paid for it, guys. And getting paid for it. Okay, that's the goal. So, I'm guilty of falling into that trap too, because a lot of times, like we get caught up in the race to the bottom. it is okay. You need to stop and say, like, the people that are, you know, mouthing off about how, like, well, I can just go down to Home Depot and get a whatever for $5. Go, like, you are not the
Have a
customer
good
I want
time.
anyway. Have a good time. Go do that.
Yep.
I'm not telling you not to do
Yep.
that, but you do not discount the fact that there are so many more people out there that are willing to pay good money to not have to do that and to have something that looks a little bit nicer and is special and stuff. You like, be special, don't compete on a commodity product. Yeah, you can. But that is a completely different thing, and you better be all about high volume and making money and all that stuff. Like, if you want to be a commodity product, that's a completely different thing. We are playing in more of the bespoke space here, you know, or some combination of the two, and we need to charge accordingly. And I think that that's really important for maker people that are thinking about getting into business to hear. You're always going to have the people that are going to complain, and you need to learn to just dismiss that and ignore it and not even let it drive your decision making. It's tough because that negative,
there's far more people that do that. Yeah, it's going to be a very small percentage, but they're louder. Like, it's hard. You know, the people that love your stuff, we do have a fair amount of people that will give us feedback, but the people that complain are always going to be louder. They're a smaller percentage, and it does make it harder because.
What are your tips for maintaining that perspective? Because I always say it's like the people in the middle of the bell curve, they're happy, they're good. You never hear from them. It's always the people at the ends, right? Like, they're either they're all, oh, this is so cool, and it's more often the people that are just negative about stuff that you need to dismiss. How do you maintain the perspective that there really are the minority? Because it's so easy to let them get into your head, like, wait, maybe this is a bigger problem than it really is.
Well, number one, I save emails and things from people that are happy, you know. So
celebrate
if if I hear from somebody that's, really happy.
That's a good idea.
And right now, because we're small, sometimes I'll send somebody like a discount code or something if they're a repeat customer, or if they've, really put our stuff out there and like played around and did videos and stuff, nothing that we asked them to do. I'll be like, hey, that's great. We love that you're sharing our stuff. We want to thank you. And watching their stuff and the people that react to that is nice. It's fun to see that. And especially, like I said before, even in other countries and different stuff, just keep it in perspective. Like, people think that stuff is cool. And then I do try to respond some to the ones that are negative. And again, just be, business-like and professional about it. And usually, just try not to think about it after that. It's like, okay, I answered that person's question and I'm moving on. An order just came in. Like, my favorite thing is to send out our newsletter that shows new products and then just like wait for my little order thing to go off on my thing. And I'm like, ding, there we go. Cool. Like, we're still doing a good thing because people are still excited,
Yes. That's another good way to celebrate. I do the same thing. I have the little notifier on my watch just as a reminder. I'm like, people are buying it. People like what you're doing. You must be doing something right because people keep buying it. Like, nothing tells the story better than sales data, right? Like, we can all talk about all this stuff, but it's like, I got the sales data here, people, so I must be on the right track. It's either selling or it's not selling, and you can complain about it all you want, but I got plenty of people that are willing to pay me, so that makes it a lot easier, right? But there's gonna be times where you're gonna and there it's hard to balance this because there is a little bit of truth, and there is a part of me, at least, that was like, well, yeah, like they're really way out of bounds with it, but they're not wrong about this, and like, and then hopefully you can keep that in your back pocket and do something in a way that kind of works, and you're still paying yourself. Like, just don't get wrapped up in the whole like race to the bottom piece. Okay, we're already going long. I love this subject matter, and I love talking to people that are just making it go for it. We could literally talk all day. We've taken up too much of your time, and as you've said, time is the most precious thing that we have. So, Joni, I want to thank you for being on the show. Is there anything you want to wrap this up with, one more piece of advice, lessons learned from being in the trenches for a year now, that you would add to anything that we've said to anybody out there?
Maybe a couple things I'd say, just kind of what we were talking about, focus on abundance rather than scarcity. I mean, there's always another something. There's always, if something doesn't work, there's always something else you can design. If one person has a problem, there's always somebody else to sell to. Like, you don't realize how much is out there in the world, you know, and it's hard when you're super small and you're starting to realize that all that's out there, but it is. So, you know, you just really need to try and focus on what else is available. And also abundance from the standpoint of like giving of your time and contributing to the community and all that kind of stuff. And now we do not put our designs out there because, you know, that's a choice that we made early on, that we're not going to sell our designs, we're going to sell our product. And that's something too. But there are people that go into that space too. And I just feel like, you know, you have to put it out there. If you want to share that stuff, you have to be okay with it and know that, you know, what you put out there is, it's going to be fine. You know, you can always do more stuff, especially as a maker. You can always design something else, think of something else. You're not a one-trick pony, you know? So I think that's a big thing to keep in mind as you have ups and downs and things happen. And, you know, just get clarity in the beginning. Try and sit down and make some choices in the beginning about where you want to fall. It doesn't mean you can't change things later on, but try and stick on a particular track for a good, you know, 6, 12, 18 months and see where it takes you, instead of just, when you constantly switch gears all the time, you're spreading wide and you're not going down the road. You know, deep. You're taking side trips. So if you can focus yourself enough to stay on that track, I think that's, you know, and then later on you can look at it and say, okay, how did that work? Do we want to change something about that? But you got to give it a chance before you just like, you know, tangent off into something else.
I got to imagine, you know, I think of that analogy and I'm like, if I was to look at my path where I am now, I'd look like a drunk just meandering down, like stumbling this way, falling off the road over here, kind of making it back. And we were just like, just get back to the road, guys. Just get back to the road. But you're right, because a lot of people don't even define what the road is. And so how are you ever going to get anywhere? Because you're just kind of looking like a little squiggly line. That's such a good way to put it. I love it. I think that's a good place to wrap it. Andrew, I want to give you your opportunity. Any last questions, comments, nuggets? We didn't talk about wins this week, even.
Yeah, we didn't.
Oh my gosh!
Well, here, let's share a win. All right, I got a really good one.
Okay.
Earlier this week, we hit 10,000 orders.
10,000 orders. That's awesome.
10,000 orders. Yep. Oh. It took us a year to get to 1,000, and then about 3 years later, we did 10,000. So it's like doing the first 1,000 9 more times in 3 years instead of a year.
You know what? I love that you shared that. And I love it when people will actually share some tangible context for people like I know that it's like dollars is always a sensitive thing, but like understanding like how much money did you put into this? How much time have you put into this? Like just so people can have some context. 10,000. So you did 100. Sorry, how many did you do the first year?
We did. It took us a year to get to about a little bit over a year to get to 1,000.
1 year to get to 1,000. How long to get to 10,000? It's been 4 now.
It took us 4 years. 4 years.
Okay, to get so to that 10, gives you guys a little look at like what that trajectory looks like.
Well, Joni, we're also we also just this week we're already over another 100 orders on top of that. So I mean it goes to show you how quick once it's latches, going and you start picking up speed.
Yes,
it just starts going. And so I guess what I would like to add is really when you set out to start your business, put some thought into what do you want to be. Like Joni was talking about how they didn't want to distribute their models. They wanted to sell their products. That's a decision that they made to do, and that's what they wanted to go and do. That's, I mean, really what we wanted to do. We wanted to focus on adhesives. And I think, we could have added on a bunch of other products. Yeah. We could have become a general reseller, if you will, but we've kept our focus and, that's 10,000 orders of Gloop. Like that's all that is. And, I'm thrilled because, I can't wait for the next 10,000, my next goal is 100,000. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm going to get there one day.
And you're going to be there way faster than you think too. Like exponential growth is an insane thing when it actually happens. Joni, do you have any wins that you want to share for the week?
I don't know if it was this week, but it was not too long ago is when we hit 10,000 in orders, and that was 10,000 in sales. So that was big for us because same thing, like $1,000 in sales was, our first, our first sale out was that. And then, that feels like a lot when it's just us doing stuff 1 and 2, and you're selling little things. So
Right.
it's cool just to see that accumulation of effort add up for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, just to give you guys some context, like I don't think we've hit 10,000 orders yet, but we're a much like higher dollar product. We're I think in like closer to 6 maybe. But yeah, it's funny how well that takes off. For us around the show, I feel like it's been a series of 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of week, because we've been trying to get a number of new products out, and we're trying to develop a lot simultaneously. But it's like, I think we finally have a design lock on something that I've been working on for a while, and so I'm just going to take that as my win for this week, and hopefully that'll hit the website for early September launch, and we may actually hit the launch target that we had for one of these things, because we always seem to grossly underestimate how long that getting new product is going to take out there. But I'll take that. If you got any in the chat, please feel free to share your wins. But I know, like I said, we're going long. Thank you so much, Joni, for joining us today and sharing your experience. And we're going to have to do a follow-up at some point just to see how things are going as you get further down the road and where you are. So we love doing our check-ins. If you guys out there know somebody or yourselves are interested in being a guest and sharing your experience on the show, please hit us up. All our contact information is in the link. You can tweet at us. You can email me through my Repkord business. You know how to find us. But we appreciate you being there, feeding us stuff from the chat, and being part of the conversation as always. So with that, I'm going to wrap up for this Friday. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy your weekends. I hope you find it enjoyable, whatever you're doing. And we will catch you for the next Maker That Money next Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, right here on the YouTubes. Join us. Till then, bye, everybody.
See ya.
Wait for it.